Namash Shivaya, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you. On behalf of the School of Cultural and Spiritual Studies, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce the speaker for today, Professor S.N. Balagangadhara, whom we fondly call Professor Balu. So, a brief introduction. Professor Balu is Professor Emeritus of Ghent University, Belgium, and the former director of the India platform, which facilitated intellectual collaboration between Europe and India. Importantly, he started the research program, Comparative Science of Cultures, which studies Western culture against the backdrop of Indian culture. In 1994, Professor Balu came out with his magnum opus, the book, his work, The Heathen in His Blindness, in which he challenged the commonly accepted notion that religion is a cultural universal, and India is one such culture without religion. And since then, Professor Balu has published several books and articles about Indian culture and traditions in several important publications. So, Professor Balu's research program, Comparative Science of Cultures, has turned many of the assumptions of social sciences and Indology on their head. On a personal note, I would like to thank Professor Balu. I was a kid who began his BA in psychology with a desire to learn about what made human beings tick and what made us culturally different. But for some reason, I didn't find what I was looking for in psychology or other social sciences. I couldn't put a finger on it, but there was a disconnect between what was taught and my own experiences as an Indian. It was Professor Balu's research that gave me the answers I was yearning for. It made sense of my cultural experience as an Indian. So, Professor Balu's research opened a new world for me and rekindled my love for knowledge. He gave me a second intellectual life. That is the best way to put it. I will always be grateful to Professor Balu and his whole research group for that. Following the Q&A session, uh, Achyutamrita Chaitanya ji, the principal of the School of Cultural and Spiritual Studies, will deliver a thank you address. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I hand over the platform to Professor S.N. Balagangadhara.
Good evening, people. I'm not sure about the title of the talk, so I'm going to kind of combine it because as I thought it was, uh, that title was about fundamentals and importance of humanities. Sorry, I understood it in terms of scientific research as it relates to social science and its importance. And I got the link which says fundamentals and importance of humanities research. So, but nevertheless, there's no problem because I won't differentiate the two. I will social sciences that I want to talk about or attempts to understand human beings in society, and humanities all about literature, philosophy, languages, all about human beings. So I'll use them more or less as synonyms in this talk. Uh, Let me begin with the social sciences. Now, if you want to know what research would mean there, whether such a research is scientific, then first thing is we must ask where these sciences are currently at this moment. Now, of course, the first assumption we have to make is that social sciences or social science is at least an example of knowledge. That is, it may not be the best example, it may not be a good example, but it must be some example of knowledge in the sense that no matter what your pet definition of science is, no matter what your pet definition of knowledge is, what is impossible for us to do is to define knowledge and science in such a way that they mean ignorance. I mean, you can't say knowledge is my definition means ignorance. Hell, so whatever knowledge is, it cannot be ignorance. In the same way, whatever science is, whatever you think about it, it cannot be but an example of knowledge. May not be the best, maybe the weakest, maybe the only, it doesn't matter. This is the first thing we must remember. So we are not making any some deep metaphysical assumptions about the greatness of science, or science can answer every question. We don't need any of those kind of silly ideas, but reasonable, required assumption that science cannot mean, or knowledge cannot mean ignorance. Now, once we do that, some interesting consequences follow just from that assumption. Perhaps the best way to do it is to give you something that happened, I don't know, 1.5 years ago or something. I read it when I came to India. I read it in a newspaper, so I was not at the talk. A very famous man in India apparently gave a talk about 1.5 years ago. So, and it comprised of people who probably describe themselves as the elites in the country, that is, professors from the Indian Institute of Science, Indian Institute of Technology, and what in common parlance is called techies, that is, software engineers, and stuff like that. So, very learned audience. I don't know, 1,000 people or so. And this famous man came, gave the following talk. I gave a talk, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, whatever. Here is a core point. Again, according to the newspaper I read. And I'm more or less citing the newspaper, and the newspaper more or less cited the speech, or at least part of the speech. So that person said, human beings have infinite potential to grow. We must try to realize that infinite potential. Ignorance is infinite. Therefore, we must all seek ignorance, not knowledge, ignorance. And he got a standing ovation from who? Software engineers, professors in the Institute of Science, in the Institute of Technology, because he finds that is what we should seek. Now, why is this example? Why am I using this example? Is to tell you the implication of this assumption that if knowledge is not ignorance, example of ignorance, and knowledge is not science is not an example of ignorance, then if you look at either knowledge or science, we discover something extraordinarily strange. Namely, knowledge is required to tell us what ignorance is. That is, it's because of knowledge we know what ignorance is. A trivial example should tell you, okay, let's say I'm ignorant about how television works. Probably most of you are ignorant about why or how aeroplanes fly, or why such a heavy object like the ship floats on the sea, and so on. These are things we don't know, let's say. Let's say we are ignorant. Now, the problem is this ignorance already requires knowledge, meaning we must assume that the aeroplane is a machine, TV is an instrument, ship is a construction driven by some or another kind of engine, and so on and so forth. Only under this assumption does the claim of ignorance of how these work make sense. It's not an abstract thing because historically it happened about a century ago. To this day, it occurs in Melanesian islands around the 19th century. There was a period when aeroplanes came, dropped goods to the people, and went. So people didn't know what aeroplanes were, they didn't know how the goods came. So they said, gods are coming, dropping things, and to this day they perform rituals. There's an airfield, some kind of an airfield construction, or some kind of a construction of a terminal, some kind of a construction of guidance system constructed by these people. To this day, they perform that ritual, wait for these objects to come and drop goods, and of course they don't do it. And it is called the cargo cult religion. It exists. So, I mean, that already tell. Why is it? Because they did not know what machines were, they didn't know what the flying machines were, what they were dropping. In other words, because they lacked the knowledge or some vague knowledge about what they were, they don't even know they're ignorant. We know that this cargo cult, we make fun of them or do study anthropology, write books about it, because we know it's not gods dropping these things. Not because gods exist or don't exist, but these aeroplanes and goods falling from the sky, or parachuted from the sky, are not gifts of the gods. In other words, without knowledge, we will not know what ignorance is. So to say, therefore, we must seek ignorance, but not knowledge, is a way of saying that this person is really not even ignorant, stupid. If you know anything about mathematics and physics, you will know that. For example, we have in mathematics and logic and such things as impossibility theorems. That is to say, which tell you what are impossible things to know. What can we not know? Then you have, if you know something about computer sciences, things like halting problem or NP complete problem. NP is equal to a P problem, it's called. $1 million is offered to show the proof that certain kinds of theorems can be solved. It's a decision problem. In other words, if you go into mathematics, if you go into physics, or one more example, we are told that you cannot fly at the speed of light. And not because Einstein decided it, or some pope decided it, or some rishi decided it. We have an equation which tells you that the mass of a body, when it is moving, its velocity defines its mass. So if you achieve the velocity of light, the mass of the body becomes infinite. So the body of the mass is infinite. You don't know what kind of energy propellant you require to propel it further. Therefore, beyond the speed of light, travel is not possible in this cosmos, within this framework of this physics and so on. In short, what we don't know, what we cannot know, what cannot be solved, these questions are answered only by knowledge. So, there is no such thing as pure ignorance. You cannot search for ignorance by saying, search for ignorance, not for knowledge, because ignorance is infinite. This person doesn't even know infinite is a mathematical term of what it means. But fine. That's how you become famous in India, I think. But it doesn't matter to us. So, given all this, what this thing is, what ignorance is, knowledge is, question becomes for us. Where exactly are social sciences today? Do they embody, express, tell us give us knowledge about human beings and society. We must ask, what is it we don't know? What is it we should know? What is it we cannot know? Then we can do research in social sciences. But in order to do so, we must understand where social sciences are today. Now, given the time I have, I see I've already taken 15 minutes. I can be extremely brief and extremely anecdotal. Anecdotal in the sense of give one or two things to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. They don't prove it, they are not evidence for it, but absolutely crucial that somehow you try and understand these anecdotes. So I'll take a couple of social sciences, which we're all familiar with, and see what way they are. Take, for example, psychology. We have the masters, PhDs, and I don't know what you will. What do we call them? Manashastra. When you talk about body and mind. Fine. But unfortunately, if you use Indian languages, we talk like fools when we say Manashastra. Because if you can ask such simple questions like, well, this manas, is it part of chitta? Is chitta in the manas, outside the manas? Different. If it is Manashastra, do we learn anything about the chitta, about bhava, about raga? They can't answer the question. Body and mind. Yeah, again the same story. So there is body and there's mind. There are two objects. Now these are not simply metaphysical philosophical assumptions. This is cognitive neuroscience. This is brain sciences. This is psychology, cognitive science and cognitive psychology. These are, and so this science tells us something very honestly speaking, no Indian can understand. Not only that, nobody understands it either because what is it we know about psychology? What is it we know about human beings? My famous example, and I'm told today not to give it, so I won't give it. I'll take another example. There are today, in the last 6-7 years, something called affective sciences have emerged. They've emerged in the sense, a lot of books are coming up. Affective sciences are about science of emotions, apparently, which means to say, it is in 2015 that we discovered the science of emotions. Just imagine. Psychology is at least 150 years old. Okay. Now, simple question. How many emotions do we have? No answer. All right, what is the relation between, I don't know, anger and scolding? Don't know. What's the relation between emotion and thought? Any emotion and any thought? Don't know. I mean to say, does thought create emotion? Emotion create thought? Or is there a kind of feedback? Don't know. Now, what exactly is it that we know that? What is it that we understand? If I ask you, does dog have manas? Yeah, maybe. If I say, does dog have a chitta? Yeah, definitely. No, it's not possible. Very well. Dose, does it have a manas? Of course not. And therefore, it doesn't also have chitta. So, these words like chitta, manas, raga, we use it, we understand it. See, the problem with you, my friend, if I say, is what you need is chitta shuddhi because you have manovikara. Well, some vague level we do understand. But the psychologists you study, in which you do a PhDs, in which you become professors, it's impossible to make sense of this. It's only mind. There's only manas. It's not simply a question of translation, please. So, what exactly is it, the psychology? Now, it's not as though Babu is saying this because if you ask psychologists, they're extraordinarily dissatisfied with the domain. Multiple things. Let me get two examples. They are unable to replicate experiments. Now, what kind of experiments? I'll come to it in a second. Second, they discover that it is not, most of the results they have do not apply to what are called non-weird countries, it appears. It's a new word. So I suppose you know it better than I do. Something to do with the Western, I don't know, industrialized countries or something like that, weird countries. And they are weird, but nevertheless, non-weird countries, their results just don't work. So, and then their experiments cannot be replicated. And what kind of experiments are they? See, in sciences, when you do experiment, you have a hypothesis, you make a prediction, you check whether the prediction comes out true or false. Psychological experiments are not like that. They establish whether such a phenomenon exists. So their experiments is to say, when you're angry, let's say, a little bit of your blood pressure rises. Experiment is about that. When you're asked a question in America, when you're asked a question about intelligent people, well, are you quicker to say Jews and whites instead of blacks and Latinos? Yeah, you take half a second more. It shows that you think that way. So it is possible that there is some prejudice. These are the experiments in experimental psychology. So it doesn't tell you anything except to say, it's like, in biology, doing experiments to confirm that we have fingers, we have hands, we have legs. Now if you call that experiment, yeah, there are psychological experiments. But even those experiments cannot be replicated, according to psychologists. That's bad psychology. All right, sociology. Have I said? The typical stories I have heard. I think this is the best story I can give you. The quality of sociological research. In India, the nature of Kolhapuri slippers. I hope you know what Kolhapuri slippers are. There are certain kinds of slippers made in Kolhapur. PhD. And of course, it transpires that has been done 15 years ago by that promoter who did, and another promoter, his promoter's promoter, did it 15 years before that. And a couple of serious amounts of money have exchanged hands. This fellow is a PhD, he becomes a professor, he teaches sociology. And I'm not joking. This is the best example I can give. There are even more trivial examples of this. But I look at a more damaging example, the caste system. Sociology combined with anthropology, I suppose. We know the story. Oh, there were the Brahmins, they oppressed Dalits and women. Sometimes it's women, most of the time it's only the Dalits, but when they're useful, they add economically backward women and other people to make it a Bahujan. So, oppress Dalits, introduce caste system. Endogamy is a fundamental basis of caste system. Therefore, Brahmins should be forced to marry. Therefore, intercaste marriage should be encouraged. And government keeps on giving money for intercaste marriages. Blah, 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 blah. You know the blah, blah. You live in it every day. All right. Now, in geometry, if you have, we used to have it in our first year in high school. I'm talking about 50s, of course, very early 60s. I don't know how it is now. We used to get in geometry something called Euclidean geometry. About triangles, rectangles, regular figures, triangles, rectangles, squares, and so on. Now, there we learned something called reductio ad absurdum. That is, you can show that something is wrong by assuming the opposite and deriving the conclusion which falsifies your assumption. No. It's called reductio ad absurdum. It's a very, very often used way in logic and in mathematics to disprove a theorem. So let's see how it applies to caste system. So what is it they say? Caste system is very old, survived. It's always Brahminical conspiracy, oppressed people, and so on. Let's assume that to be true. Lecture observance begins with it. So, now, very easily, this can be transformed into its opposite without adding anything. If a system has survived over 2000 years, it follows logically that's an extraordinarily stable system. It has undergone Muslim invasion, British colonialism, world market, independence movement, neo-colonialism, colonialism, and the Congress and the BJP. Oh, and Indian constitution, of course. So, not just stable, it survives in all environments. Well, EMS Nambudiri, a Marxist, was a Brahmin. Of course, was against caste system. He said there are no such thing as a caste system because it is a Marxist, it's a class system. You have them in all political shades. Pro-right, extreme pro-right in India, defense caste system. Extreme pro-right in India, a tax caste system. You listen to them, they're called, what is it? Trads and mods, and something like that. Trads meaning traditionalists, I suppose, mod means modern, and whatever. So the trads and the mods fighting in amongst the right, and amongst the left, and amongst the liberals, which means it is neutral to all political ideologies, political theories. Oh, it has survived colonialism, Nehru's statism, Manmohan Singh's attempt at free market economy, BJP, which means very simply, and Kerala and West Bengal. So it's indifferent to political structures. It could be socialism, it could be capitalism, it could be communism, whatever. And there is no centralized organization, meaning one thing called the Brahmanical, the caste system all over India never existed, did not implement it. So it is decentralized. And new castes have come, old castes have died. That means it's a dynamic system. So, same expression, same description. We get the following opposite result: dynamic, decentralized, adaptive to multiple environments, and so on. Stable, as I said. Well, there are and changes nevertheless. Well, on this earth, we only have two examples of such systems. One is human language, but even better, life. Stable, dynamic, self-reproducing, decentralized. It is the ideal form. The ideal form we know. So, that's why probably why I survived 2,500 years. Same story, whether you pick it up from Phule, whether you pick it up from Ambedkar, whether you pick it up from Narayan Guru, whoever, their story says this is the best possible thing. Now, if their stories is the worst possible thing, from the same story, it's logically true, it's also the best possible thing. In mathematics, we call it reductio ad absurdum. That means that story cannot possibly be true. It's false. It's inconsistent, incoherent. Yeah, but obviously today Indians don't care about incoherence, inconsistency, etc., because the Constitution writes that in. We build reservation policies, and the Prime Minister of India says, I could not have been a Prime Minister if it wasn't for Ambedkar. True or false? It's not important to me. Reductio ad absurdum. So, sociology and anthropology, absolute crisis. Nobody knows what caste is. Some anthropologists say caste is not a category. Subcastes are important in India. Now, how do you get subcaste without caste? God knows. Caste and Varna are the same, say somebody. Oh, these people don't know Sanskrit. Caste and Varna are not the same. Somebody else. So anything is possible. The number of stories, maybe there are about 10 stories, 15 stories about what caste system is. But what, you can always accept them, but one thing we know for sure, every single one of them has been through a field work by their colleagues shown to be completely 100% false. Every story, no exception. Yeah, as I say, it's written into the Indian Constitution. So, if jurisprudence is like, if Constitution is like the Indian Constitution, it's not a problem of Indian Constitution alone. I look at the United States today. Look at the Supreme Court there. Look at what Trump is doing. I mean, law, justice, Constitution is a joke. Bad joke, painful joke, but it's a joke. Yet we generate lawyers, we have justices, Supreme Court justices, District Court justices, and so on and so on. We have national institutes of law. That's what? Law. Okay, political theory. Again, let's begin with one example. Democracy. It's supposed to be the best form of governance that ever existed. Mankind has ever found. You know the story. Very well. Let's assume it's true. Again, in this time, no reduction. Observe, just look at the world. Best system. All right. In India, what do? Buy and sell votes. Either cash, or utensils, or land, or what you people call freebies. So, what's so good about it? No. Of course, there are other slogans. You shall not sell your vote for money. Why do you have to keep on doing it? That's because everybody does it exactly the same. I mean, people are not fools, no. Now, when people buy and sell for money, utensils, etc., their votes, a bigger problem. For example, you can take money from everybody and vote somebody if you feel like. You take money from somebody, vote for somebody else. You can say, I voted for you, lie. And in other words, you encourage an enormous deception in people and pay for them for it. So deception is actively encouraged. Okay, could be deception, there's no problem, but you like to look at the results. Well, what do we see? Hitler elected by elections. Trump elected by elections. Boris Johnson, same thing. So, in the last 90 years, if you go, which people have been elected, including Obama, Clinton, I mean, you name it, in America, Britain, Australia, wherever you go, India. And in the last 90 years. So what is good about it? There are catastrophic results, catastrophic consequences, not just nationally, not just to people internationally. You feel like asking, what is so good about democracy? Okay, let's go to economics. Two examples. One, you were not born then, I suppose. You had a chap called Ronald Reagan and a woman called Margaret Thatcher. One was the Prime Minister of Britain, Margaret Thatcher. Ronald Reagan became the President of the United States. At that moment, dollar was sinking. Now, I don't know how much the exchange rate was in India. I was in Belgium. And if I make some kind of a correlation to, we had Belgian francs, now we have euros. So if I make a correlation somewhere, but $1 must have been, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 rupees maximum. I know that such state. I know there was once 40 rupees, but I don't know what happened in this period. If it followed the basket of currencies, 25, 30. So dollar was sinking. So people, of course, economists, worried what to do and so on. So, but what did Ronald Reagan do? He came and started a massive budgetary deficit, massive. Every economist For example, at that moment, the Minister of Finance of Belgium was Vice Prime Minister. And he gave this advice. A lovely man, acted like a grandfather, and he explained to the whole population they had to do budgetary cuts. And he said, you see, economy is like a family. You cannot live above your means. You can only spend what you have got. Belgium has been spending more money than it got in. Therefore, we have to reduce our expenditure. And normally, first candidature, first lesson in economics, you're taught this is a fallacy. This is a stupid thing. This is untrue in economics. But our ministers of finances can always say anything. So he said that. And of course, there were some journalists who had probably studied first candidature, first bachelor's economics. He said, sir, if you say that, at that moment, what's happening? Why? Because if you borrow too much money, there won't be enough money for investment for private industries, which means interest rates go up, which means import becomes expensive, which means inflation rises. Therefore, the same argument is still used today. Therefore, we must reduce budgetary deficit. So this newspaper reporter, who probably had gone to the first bachelor's, said, sir, America is doing that, but its dollar is increasing in value. Good question. America is an exception. Oh, economics doesn't apply to America. Oh, I see. And it's so economic science, is it? So Indians can fly on flying carpets. Gravitation doesn't work there because you're sadhus who can do that. It works everywhere else in the cosmos, is there? That's what this guy was saying. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finances. And, of course, you can say this bloody Belgian minister didn't know much about economics. But what did economists? They were predicting the same story. Every day they said, dollar is going to come crashing down. Years on end, dollar kept raising 3 times, 4 times its value. Years, 3, 4 years. Every day, no. It will. Because, here is your argument, what goes up must come down. So one day, dollar will come down. Economists. Then after 4 years, dollar did start falling. Every economist jumping up and down. Did we not tell you that? What goes up has to come down. So we need the story. You don't need a theory of gravitation for that. I mean, I don't know, 5,000 years ago, caveman knew that. What goes up must come down. We need that. That's the best economic theory can do to talk about this, is it? That is yesterday. But today, last 10 years, if you follow the newspapers, you will see China. China is the biggest, most favorite goal now, like Japan was once. In the last 8 years, kindly look at journals, economists and stuff like that. They have been predicting collapse and crisis of Chinese economy. Because China is doing everything that you should not do. And therefore, there was a real estate problem. You see, we've been predicting it. It's going to happen. It's going to come crashing down. And it cannot be supported. The Chinese political party supported it, did something else, didn't come crashing down. Its gross national product is only 5.5%. Oh, really? 5.5% with that great an economy, you know what that means? That's more than 15% of growth in India per annum. But no, it's only 5%. We are 8%, we are 7%, we are 2.5%. So every single economic policy has been contradicted. The opposite is done in China. Economy has not come crashing down. On the contrary, it continues to grow. How is that possible? with economics. So, and I can so go on and on, but that must give you anecdotally tell you what the problem is. Every single specialist in this area talks that way. Economics is even better. You must look at the Nobel Prizes. They give Nobel Prizes 1 year, and 2 years later they give it to the person who says just the opposite. He gets a Nobel Prize also. So imagine arithmetic 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 gets Nobel Prize. 2 years later, 2 plus 2 is equal to 522 also gets a Nobel Prize. That's the level. And incredibly stupid ideas get Nobel Prizes. A few years ago, I'm sure you don't even remember the name of the guy in behavioral economics who spoke about nudge. So when you want to change policies, you should not force people, you must nudge them, not just using the elbow. What we need in America, that fellow came on CNN, Trump was the president. We need about 10 nudge economists sitting there, and we'll solve the problem. 10 nudge economists didn't come, problem was not solved, and today we see problems will come worse. Nobel Prize. So you had to nudge people, not force them. Really, you need economics for that. A child of 6 years knows that. So, like this, these are our social sciences. And they all find there's crisis in it. I don't, they do. Economics is called a dismal science by Nobel Prize winners of economics. Psychology, they don't get Nobel Prize. Best practitioners compare it to astrology. So we make fun of astrologers. No, kindly they don't do psychology if that's what you're doing. So, question, is that kind of thing you have to do research on? No. They're not sciences, they're ideologies. Why are they that? Well, I'm reaching the last 10 minutes of my time. There's not much I can say here. Let me tell you where I thought I have been doing for the last 45 years. The research that I've been doing has taught me this, which is that, you see, when you build a theory, hypothesis about some part of the world, whether it's economics, sociology, anthropology, political science, constitutional law, whatever, you make use of some kind of a framework. It has got different names, such as programs, such as traditions, paradigms, so on and so forth. There are discussions, interesting and not interesting about it, but we won't go there. So there is a framework behind all these so-called social sciences, and why they have failed 200 years or more to generate knowledge. And I claim that that framework is very basically, not all the time, 98% of the time, is a framework of Semitic religions, that is, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That framework is behind this. And so-called social sciences or embroidered theology of these religions. So you might think, if that's the case, we Indians, most of us, or Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, we should have no problems. But unfortunately, the opposite is the case. We are the most Semiticized culture you can think of. Every single thing we say about India comes directly from Semitic religions. Caste system story, Semitic religions and the Western culture. Law and politics comes from them. Sociology comes from them. Psychology, mind-body comes from them. We just take it over and reproduce it. So we reproduce their social theories, which doesn't make sense at all, either to us psychologically, cognitively as individuals, or does it make sense nationally, culturally. Because we are not like that, our culture is not like that, our society is not like that. But you use that to devise policies, to train students, and so-called do research. Go and ask anybody who's doing research in social science to do. Absolutely. How well is it? It's not even good. There are attempts, and they talk about such things like coloniality, decoloniality, colonial set of mind which you must remove, blah, blah, blah again. And this is a reproduction of what NRIs in America tell us, or some people in Europe tell us. What's the result? Oh, what we don't want is Western Indology. What do you want? Swadeshi Indology. Now, what is Swadeshi about it? Oh, well, Indians will write about Indology. Oh, by God. And you read what this Indology says, they're saying exactly the same thing at a lower level, third-rate intellectuals doing Swadeshi Indology. Just because you call something Swadeshi, does become Swadeshi people. Or what do? You ask some bunch of useless buggers sitting in education department in a cell and generate something called IKS BK, Indian Knowledge Systems, Bharatiya Knowledge Systems. Very good. Look at the curriculum. Go to the Department of Education, look at the curriculum. Let me give you one example. Students must be, so this is about computer science, artificial intelligence. They must be taught Shilpa Sutra. Oh, why is it? Because Sutra in Sanskrit is algorithms. Oh, so we must learn to write algorithms. Okay, therefore, they must read Shilpa Sutra to find out how they should write Sutra. People, are we serious? They want to train what, according to UGC? 100,000 IKS, BKS personnel, which means crores of rupees will be going from the government to whom? Private organizations, friendly universities of the government. Pay them to do what? Teach them Shilpa Sutra. IKS, BKS. So they're mushrooming. Every university has an Indian knowledge system. One non-profit after another are financed massively, hopefully, they think. It's a way of earning money, I understand. I find it's a respectable way of earning money. But tell me, you won't solve the problem in India. Crisis is growing. We don't have teachers. Who will teach Indian knowledge system? Nobody knows what Indian knowledge system is. So, who will teach them? God alone knows. It's like the government before BJP and after BJP. Oh, we are going to create a lot of education institutions. How do you do that? Well, build buildings. Very good. But who are the teachers? There are no teachers. And let me end because I'm reaching the end of my time. But one thing which I'm very deeply worried, I hope you also will be. Of course, this is limited contacts, limited work I've done in a few Indian cities. So I don't know how it is elsewhere. You have the secondary school living certificates, central syllabus, I don't know, CBSE, some two syllabus, NBC, I don't know, some two syllabi. And people are taught physics, chemistry, maths, electronics, and so on. Okay. Most of these people, meaning 98% or more, go for private tuition. They don't have to be rich. Housemaids' children who go to English medium schools, sent to English medium schools, the mother works in 10 houses to earn enough money to send her child or children, and they go to private tuition also. So it's not just rich people. So, private tuition. Because the schools they go to, private schools, they don't teach them there. Hardly anything. They don't understand anything. They have to go to private tuition if they have to pass the exams. Okay? So I met Trabant around trying to to find out who these private tutors are. 85% of them, what am I talking about, 4 or 5 years ago, were 65, 70 years old. 85%. Okay, what's the problem? What happens to those people 15 years down the line? They'll die, no. 85, or let's say 75%, they will not be teachers for children for the central exams in physics, chemistry, maths, electronics, and so on. The new teachers, either they don't teach or a recruitment, depending upon where you get recruited, is on the basis of caste certificate. People don't know what they're teaching, cannot teach. Even in engineering colleges, those professors who teach, make each other courses, or their professors 15 years ago, they don't do any new research. For example, teaching computer science in Indian Institute of Science. One of my friends who worked in Intel, donated his personal library to the Indian Institute of Science because he told me, Balu, they're teaching them computer architecture of 8086 CPU. Today, if you know something about computers, began in 8086, became 8088, 8286, 386, 486, SXDX, 586, Pentium, Celeron. These are already passé, these are behind. Today, Indian Institute of Science, 5 years ago, were teaching them 8086 instruction sets. That's all. So he gave him his personal library. Indian Institute of Science. So, college professors, university professor, top university professor at that level, ordinary Indian engineering college, awful. I've gone there, I've seen them teach the courses of what they were taught 15 years ago, literally 20 years ago, 15 years, they reproduce the courses. Secondary school private tutors, about 70-75% of them will be dead in the next 4 or 5 years maximum. Secondary school, universities. People, where are your children going to learn? We are going to be the Black Africa of 1920s in less than 5 to 8 years' time. Your children, forget your grandchildren, cannot be educated. Where are you going to go? And there's a lot of people who have money, politicians. Every single politician I know has his children abroad. Not for higher education to do PhD. Oh, no, secondary schools. Sending them to Switzerland, boarding schools, England, boarding schools. And they're all, of course, all of them politicians, and every single Ambedkarite leader I know does exactly the same thing. Film stars going abroad, children. Cricketers going abroad. Virat Kohli is settling down in England. Why? Because his children education. He won't get it in India. With his money. Mm-hmm. So, that's where we are. This is the catastrophe. No sciences, no social sciences. Ideology. Reproduction of Semitic religious, embroiderment of Semitic religions in India becomes our educational system. And our ministers of education are the most incompetent people you can have, beginning with Smriti Irani to I don't know who the bugger is now. Forget his name, Pradhan something or the other. This is where we are. Scientific research today then would mean developing knowledge about India, about the world. Doing scientific research means saying it's the most exciting, interesting thing you can do. You'll get bored if you have to do PhD research at Kolhapuri chapels, my friends. You'll get bored if all you have to do, unless you have promised jobs and money, those exclusive centers of exclusion, and we study how people are What? Doing Bettale Seve, Urulu Seve, and so on and so on, how the Brahmins are dominant. Well, you may earn money, some of you, by saying that, by doing that. You can't do any research. That's why no serious research has come out. No serious scientist has come out. No serious poet or artist has come out. No serious literary figure has come out. 80 years reservation from that. Why is that? It can't be because all I see is stupid people. It's impossible. So, that's where we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, all I can tell you is if you want to do research, if you want to know this thing, don't seek ignorance. Seek knowledge. That is the only place you can do research. That must be science, not ideology research. And today, what parts of the social sciences are ideological embellishments and adornments of Semitic religions. And your Swadeshi Indologies and your IKS are even worse than Western Indology. Worse. Third rate. So, don't do that. But that's the future. You want to make money? Join the IKS. You want to make money? Join Swadeshi Indology. But you want knowledge? Avoid them like plague. You want to do research? Avoid them like plague. Choice is yours. But remember one thing. This choice of yours today will determine how your children, what your children will have. Should they beg on the streets like 1920 Black Africa? Talking about $1 trillion economy will get you nowhere. Because who are the bloody CEOs talking about? I'm not talking about politicians. One idiot comes and says, 70 hours work? The other says, 80 hours work. What do you do staring at your wife's face? You know something? If I was given that kind of salary, like the two CEOs, one who said 70, other said 80, I'll give you a discount. I'll say 60 hours is enough for me. Please give me that salary. And the same responsibilities. I will do better than you, or at least as good or as bad as you. Give me the salary. You can always bullshit like that, no? So the only thing men do after work is go home, sit and stare at their wives. Oh, please. How poor that man's life must be. That's your future. Nor of your children. So, social science research is not simply a career choice. It's not simply a question of certificates. It is about your future, more importantly, future of your children and your grandchildren. You want to sacrifice it? Do what you're doing now. You want to at least attempt to make it better for them? Start thinking. This is been the result, if you like, of the last 45 years of my research. And I began, for those of you who find it important, as a Marxist. So, my time is up. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I hope you followed me. The word is yours, Arvind.
Thank you. Thank you, Balu, for that. It's you've given us a lot of food for thought and a lot of gut punches also, but sometimes we need those punches. And now this thing, we will go to the questions. The questions have been already one question is in the chat. I hope more questions come. You can, if you want to look through them and answer them as you see. There's 15 minutes for question and answer, so please.
Okay. I will answer them all. First is by Anthony Raj. He asks the following question. Ignorant, you know it, but I still read it. Ignorance as proceeding from knowledge. Can we call it learned ignorance? Refers to Nicholas of Cusa. I don't know what Nicholas of Cusa says about this. No, it's not learned ignorance. There's only one ignorance, which is generated, telling you, knowledge tells you what is it you don't know. That's ignorance. So it is not, not simply proceeds from knowledge. Without knowledge, you can't even call it ignorance. They call it foolishness. That's all. Uh, Same Anthony also asks, is not monoculturalism lurking behind even the so-called multidisciplinarity? So what is, which culture is mono? I don't understand, but about multidisciplinarity, let me say two things. One, most institutions in India that I know hate multidisciplinarity, even though they talk multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. The second is they don't know what it means. Even those who are positive don't know what it means. You see, multidisciplinarity does not mean, take for example, we are doing research into the eye, let's say. Now, multidisciplinarity, as Indians understand it, is, biologists look at the eye, sociologists look at the eye, psychologists and cognitive perception theorists look at the eye, artificial intelligence look at the eye. So, multidisciplinary means these 4, 5, 6, 7 disciplines, individuals sit and work. That's not multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity at all. It is simply a random combination of different people. Real and the only multidisciplinarity is the following, which shows to you that if you ask questions about the eye, you need these disciplines to formulate the very question itself. Therefore, answers can only be sought together. It's a combination of multiple knowledge which allows multiple domains, which allows you to raise a question and answer them. That is multidisciplinarity, that is interdisciplinarity, and that is what Europeans and Americans are seeking. We Indians learn words and reproduce them like slavish parrots, but even that slavish parroting, probably for that reason, I don't know, most of the Indian institutes, IITs, ISCs, don't take multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary people. They don't employ. You need to be specialist in your own domain. So I don't know what monoculturalism you're talking about. And do we need cultural disarmament? Oh dear God, it reminds me of moral disarmament movement in America. I don't know what disarmament you're talking about. I don't know what it means to disarm culture. What would cultural disarmament mean? And what kind of culture you're talking about? So unless you specify the question, I cannot go further than this, I'm afraid. Namah Shivaya. I suppose that's your handle. You mentioned that both sociology and anthropology are in crisis. I don't say it, people say that. Practitioners say that. With that being said, is there a way to conduct meaningful research in social sciences? Well, that's what I've been doing for 45 years. Yes, it's possible. But you have to leave these kind of things behind you. So you can't do anthropology. That's why I developed something called comparative science of cultures as an alternative to all kinds of anthropologies and sociologies. So you cannot reproduce, continue forward what they are doing. There are no research questions to be asked. For example, in anthropology, kinship structures, a Schneider, that's 1960s America, he died. That's all they have. Ethno-linguistics, ethno-anthropology, ethno-archaeology, come and go. So, is there a way of continuing it? Well, you can do it. Call it publish in some bloody journal or the other, call it research. But you want to do something serious? In the current domain, not possible. Is there a scientific methodology, research methodology for conducting research in social sciences? Yes and no. First, generally, with respect to the question, you see, the idea that you need some kind of methodology to do research is a very silly idea from the 17th century understanding of sciences. Today, if we use the word methodology, we use it in terms of using statistical sciences, interpreting it. You have the Fisher and you have the Bayesian and so on. So nobody asks this question except in scientific committees. What is the research methodology? And I've been part of the National Science Foundation here. I was there for 10 years. And I used to get this question, and then I stopped asking it after the second time I intervened. I said, you know what? Suppose you ask Einstein that. What research methodology did he use to come to general theory of relativity? I tell you what he's going to tell you. It appears he was sitting in a tram in Zurich, in Switzerland, and it was going very slow, and the cars kept on passing on his side faster and faster. He got very frustrated by that, and that's how, thinking about it, is how general theory of relativity came into existence. So, what I'm trying to say, what is your research methodology, Professor Einstein? He would say, well, I'm going to sit in the tram and watch the cars pass by, and I'll get frustrated. Nobody will give me a research project. Today, there is not one single serious historian of science or philosopher of science who believes there is something called the method of science or scientific methodology. It doesn't exist. Biology does it differently than economics, if economics is a science. Biology does genetics does it differently than evolutionary biology. They do it differently than quantum physics, and so on and so forth. There is no one methodology called scientific methodology. This is the no answer. There is another yes answer. If I were to do what I am doing for the last 45 years, alternative to the existing social sciences, is there a way that you can follow? Answer yes. It is completely different from how you're taught to do in sociology, anthropology, and so on. Far more interesting, far more challenging, far more scientific. So yes, in this sense, there is a methodology to do the kind of research I'm doing. Sushruta, what are the principles that Western approaches have created, frameworks of theories that are being replicated in India? Is it necessary to create one other? Should we think without frameworks at all? First, you cannot think without frameworks. Simply not possible. But why is a very, very long explanation, so I won't give you that. What are the principles? Oh, my dear. Listen, what is the principle that makes you think that we have mind and body? What are the principles that make you think that democracy, people ruling over themselves, is a good form of political structures? What makes you say that equality is possible in social structures? Whatever that might mean, we don't know what equality is, but social justice. What exactly is a social justice we're talking about? These, which inform, define, develop social theories, are all coming from Semitic religions. So, this is what is being replicated. Whether you say there must be social justice, you're replicating it. Whether you believe social injustice should be there, you're replicating it. So, that is what I'm trying to say. The only way you can understand it, Sushruta, is start trying to read what I have written. I raise some of these questions, answer them. What does a non-Semitized India look like? A beautiful question. Any one, two examples which might indicate towards solutions? Well, it's very strange that the Indian should ask that. You mean to say that we don't know how the world looks like if there is no Christianity, Judaism, Islam? That we never knew what the world was, how we lived without Christianity, Judaism, and Islam in India? We didn't know. That is the non-Semitized India. How does it look like? Oh God, we lived like that for more than 2,000 years. Any one, two examples which might indicate to a solution? Examples of what? What an alternative story would be like? My suggestion, please read what I've written. I have developed, for example, about secularism. I have written, together with my student, what the discussion debate involves. Why is it Semitic? Both secularism and the criticism that Hindutva is anti-secular. Both. Why is that Semitic? Why? It makes no sense in India. But it's a dominant story today. BJP, RSS call them pseudo-seculars. Used to. I don't know whether they do it even now. And the other seculars. Same thing with Constitution. Today, Rahul Gandhi goes around waving the book, black book, Constitution. It reminds me very much of what happened in 50s and 60s with the Maoists in India and in China. Little Red Book, we used to call them. We meaning I was not a Maoist. I was anti-Mao. Little Red Book. And I used to make fun of it. Little Red Book is important. And I tested it with the Indian Maoists. They fell for it. Oh, according to the Little Red Book, you are not following Comrade Mao. You're not following Mao, comrade, because the Little Red Book says you must shine the torch when you're going down dark stairs. And the Buddhists believed it. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a typical brilliance of Comrade Mao. So, show torch when you're going down dark stairs. That's the Little Red Book of Mao. Today they're going around waving that. So, you criticize the Constitution, BJP tells an MP to come and apologize in the parliament and get thrown out of the party. You can't criticize it. Samvidhan, वो तो हमारा वेद है. I've heard Chief Justices talk like that. So, what does non-Semitized? Question, very simple. Before we had Constitution, I don't mean Ambedkar Constitution. I mean 1940s India Act, on which to this day our constitutional laws are based. To this day, even if you give them Hindi Sanskrit names like Amit Shah has done, is still 1948 India Act. Tell me, did we not have, if you forget the Muslims, did we not have any kingdoms? Did we not have any ruling? We did not. Or take, for example, theory of human rights. It's important. I'm not ridiculing theory of human rights, but question, non-Semitized. Well, you think in India, without theory of human rights, you must remember, in its secular form is after the Second World War with the United Nations. So before that, a couple of hundred years before, there's a discussion in the church, 15th, 16th century Catholic Church. After that, secularized discussion in John Locke and others. But let's go 15th century. Before that, during that period, before that, there was no notion of human rights anywhere in the world. You think Indian kings went around torturing people who disagreed with them? No, we didn't. In fact, torturing began of political people who have political differences after 60s in India. The first people who got tortured were the Maoists. Political torture. Correct. So, it is with human rights the idea of torturing political prisoners comes into existence, not before that. Why is that? So, that is how non-Semiticized India looks like. In one word, it was a livable culture and a livable society, my dear. Today's India is neither livable as a culture nor livable as a society. Next question, Kartika. Why is it evident to find cultural and methodically gulf in social sciences compared to all phases? It's not evident to find, that's what they find it, they see it. Why? Compared to all fields of sciences, very simple. No, these are not sciences at all. They are ideologies, calling themselves sciences. So I want to show this is bogus. So there is a gulf in all senses, not just methodologically, not just theoretically, not just experimentally, not just culturally. Social sciences are not sciences, they're ideologies, embroiderments of Semitic theology. Anthony answers, what is meant by cultural disarmament is an overcoming of conviction that truth is one and I alone have it. Oh, dear God. People, how many truths are there? I mean, my name is Balu. Anthony's name is Anthony. Are there two truths? Somebody is called Vishwanathan Kartiani. Three truths. Capital of India is Delhi. Four truths. How many truths are there? Everything is true. What is falsehood then? Truth is one. We don't even know what the hell it means. I alone have it. And see, this entire thing is very typical Semitic idea. Truth means God in Semitic religions. God is the truth. Only one God. I alone have. Now that you don't have God, God has communicated the truth only to you, Christians or Jews or Muslims. So, truth is one, I alone have it, is Semitic. So, here is an extra sting. Ekam sat vipraha bahuda vadanti. Ekam sat. Sat, not satya. People who say that truth is one. It's not truth. Upanishad is talking about sat. Sat and satya are different. Yeah, but people who talk that probably don't know Sanskrit also. Ekam sat vipraha bahuda vadanti. So different people have different truths, but truth is one. Yeah, you can't be more Semitic than that. And that's from the RSS BJP story. So, if you don't give up this, but this is your common sense, this is how you're brought up. But it's absolute nonsensical. Reality is one. How the hell do you know that? You can't even answer the question. Human beings are both physiological, sociological, psychologists. There are three realities, three levels of realities. You can't even answer it. So, reality is one, truth is one. These are nonsensical things we don't understand, but we reproduce like slavish parrots. Because we don't know Christianity, we don't know Judaism, we don't know Islam. So, cultural disarmament, that's right, not for an accident. I said it reminds me of moral disarmament. It's a Protestant movement from America. Protestant. Very Christian. All right, Vishwanathan. My question about your...
we'll have one more question. The time is almost coming to end. One more question and then...
No, let me answer. There are two questions. Let me answer them, Arvind. Those who can't, they can go read the talk, but people are raising questions, I'd like to answer them. My question about your concerns about IKS, BKS, I don't have concerns. Shit. Don't you consider that IKS has greater things to offer to the world by way of helping to correct the anomalies of learnings that we have been celebrating so far? How we can strengthen and foster IKS more than what is being done currently. IKS will do no such thing. Because you must know, see, that's a problem with us. Indian knowledge system that we talk about today comes from West. In the 60s, they started talking about African knowledge systems. So, and then they started talking about indigenous knowledge systems. They started talking about how the Navajo have a different mathematics, not different mathematics, they're different numerals. Yeah. Those who talked about it don't know these things. Oh, we have different physics, we have different mathematics, and that must be appreciated. And then the story of barefoot doctors, acupuncture, all of them became native knowledge systems. So today, Indians, again slavishly parroting that with respect to Indian knowledge systems, and the rest of the world has gone beyond it. Nobody today talks about, no, serious people talk about native knowledge systems, except Indians. That's the first thing. It could have greater things to offer. Yes, it could. Logically, it's possible, but it's like this. Not a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, Quality of Skills International gave a report. And in that report, potentially for the future, they said, next to the United States, potential India is number two, very far behind United States, but still number two. And of course, famous politicians tweet, oh, we are number two, look at the success of our program. Yeah, but they're talking about potential. No. Actuality, India is 42nd with respect to where it is today. So one day it could, if everything goes well, it could become number two. Not it actually should become number one. There's 6 billion, I don't know how many billion people we have. Brilliant people, quite a few of them. Why only the second place? But doesn't matter. It's a potential. So yeah, IKS could have the potential. You can even describe my research as IKS. What's in a name? How can we strengthen and foster the IKS more than what is being done currently? Nothing is being done currently. The people are making money. That's the only reason they're setting up IKS. They're getting funding. How can we strengthen? Search, find knowledge first. Are you want money? You want status? You want to set up non-profit organizations to suck money from the government? Go to IKS. You want to use private funders to fund you and call it IKS? You know what IKS is? What is Indian knowledge system? Vedic astronomy. Are you serious? Aryabhata's mathematics in Kerala, you think you can use it to send to space vehicles? You think ISRO uses Aryabhata? Our astronomy in Ramayana. What are you talking about? So, please think. These are all propaganda. They can buy into it. I have no problems. But know the end result. Your talk, etc. What advice do you have for professors teaching research methods to students in interdisciplinary fields? My advice to you, Sudha, is to start finding people who are doing interesting research and start working, collaborating with them. That's what I would suggest. So that's the only way forward. When I started, I was all alone. Today, I built up quite a few people, number of students who do it, who are following that, developing their own research. They're not my clones. I'm not the guru. And they may call me a guru, but there is no Siddhanta they're defending. So that's the only advice I'm afraid I can give you. There are not many people. I don't know many people who are doing it. In fact, I don't know any outside of my circle. So yeah, it looks like blowing my own trumpet. I don't like to do that. But that's the only route I can tell you. Ishan, what's the way forward? Well, what's the way forward? Very simple. Think of a question that interests you, that bothers you, that you want to do research about. Start communicating in this group. Will help you formulate the research question and you follow it. That's the only way. That's how you do research. I mean, how else do you see? I mean, if somebody says, I want to do research in advanced physics, how do you do that? I'll go to a teacher, go to a lab, discuss, find out, and then, yeah, that's the only way. There isn't anything else. Aishwarya, what advice would you give to those who want to conduct research without using frameworks shaped by Semitic ideologies? Well, Aishwarya, to begin with, you cannot do research today, 2025, without guidance, because every framework you'll use is shaped by Semitic ideology. The first thing is, see how can you find questions, and you need guidance. There's no other way. If you wanted to do research in physics in the period of Galileo, you could not go to Aristotelian students. No, exactly the same thing here. So you have to find someone who can help you to formulate questions properly. We started collaborating as much as we can in the Amrita School for Sustainable Futures. Well, congratulations. I hope you'll set it forward. That ends the questions. Arvind, Mike is back to you.
Thank you, Bal. Thank you for going through all the questions, answering them patiently. And Now, I guess there's nothing left. I will hand the mic over to our principal, Achyutamrita Chaitanya Ji, for this.
Thank you, Aravind. And anyway, Professor, I'm audible, I hope.
Yes,
You are,
we
sir.
can hear you.
You are.
Uh, Professor Balagangadhara, Baluji, it was a really engaging session, and many new directions were given by you regarding in which way research has to be taken up, as well as the concepts that we all had. Maybe like people like me who belong to the as you are also belong to the old generation and not much exposed to the modern trends. You have opened our eyes in a lot, in lot of manners, and I, on behalf of ASSC, Samantha School of Spiritual and Culture Studies, profusely thank you for having spent this much 1.5 years almost with us. Uh, Throwing light on many aspects like sociology, and the statement that social science is not the right thing. It's an ideology that these types of things are really eye openers for us, and I take this opportunity to thank from my bottom of my heart for having directed us or taken us to new horizons of vision, new concepts, and new understandings. And I take this opportunity to thank Arvind also for having made you available to share your knowledge with us. And the participants, I hope, are really enriched with this session, with the outputs that you have given us. So once again, I thank you profusely on behalf of all the participants as well as the School of Spiritual and Cultural Studies. And I take this opportunity to thank our Chancellor Amma also for making all these things happen. With her blessings, we are able to do all these things. So once again, thank you, Balu. I offer these words at my mother's Amma's Lord's feet. Om Amriti Shri.
Yeah. May I, if I just can have one word, sir? Thank you very much. Uh, of course, I've heard a lot of Amma, all good things, unfortunately, or fortunately. So I'm very glad that she's doing what she's doing. One such is creating these kind of universities. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. I hope your students enjoyed it. And next time you go and meet Amma, please give her my prostrations.
Surely, surely, Balu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bal. Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.
Yeah.